Hi there, welcome to our how-to series for eNETEmployer. Today's lesson will talk about adding employees to your eNETEmployer payroll. There's two ways to do it: adding the setting for each employee manually and adding them using an employee template. We'll talk about both in today's lesson. Let's begin by starting up the program. And then we'll choose the payroll service to begin. Now once you've opened the program, make sure you're on the Payroll tab and then click on the Employee menu and you'll see a bunch of different options. We will choose the Set Up Employee option right at the top. As you can see in our sample payroll, we already have 5 employees set up, employee 1 through 5, along with each of their individual birth date settings, gender, language, and so on. You'll also notice the final column called Template has hourly and salary shown for various employees. For example, Gregory House was set up using an hourly template, and what this means is that many hourly based settings were applied automatically because we set him up with a template. And in a similar manner, our second employee, Peter, has had the salary template used when we added him to the payroll. So now let's use the template feature to add our next employee. We move to the top left of the screen and click on the template drop down, and we can see hourly and salary template types that we set up earlier. Let's choose hourly and then choose the new button. A new row now appears in the table along with some default values ready for you to enter. Let's quickly assign some default values here. And for the purposes of our demo, we will put in a test social insurance number. And we'll replace the system's default employee number with something a little more friendly for us, 3 characters. And we'll assign a birth date of 1990. And March 1st will be fine. Scrolling over, we see a couple more options here. Our employee's middle initial, and we'll set the language to default, which in this case is English, and this employee has no dependents. And the last column in this particular screen, you can see that we've chosen the hourly template for him. So scrolling back over, we'll click the Save button, and that completes the settings for this single employee. Now, in order to better understand the template settings that were applied, let's have a look at the template that we used. If we click on Current Payroll, and then Templates at the bottom, we can see the original templates that we saw on the other screen, hourly and salary. And in this case, we applied the hourly template, which automatically assigns a number of settings for this employee. For example, all hourly employees will be assigned a full rate business account, a factory distribution, and a tax province of Manitoba. The stat code will be hourly, and if we scroll over to the other settings, we can see that the earnings that will be assigned to all hourly employees will be vacation, double time, overtime, stat pay, and regular. And the deduction benefits will be RSP and group insurance. And our second template type, salary, has lots of similar settings, but the distribution will be for head office. And if we scroll over, we can see different earning types for salary employees: commission only, salary, bonus, and vacation pay. Now let's look at some more details for the new employee to see some of these template settings in action. If we click on Employee and look at Earning Items, we can see our 6 employees, including our new Bill Testman. And if we expand his row, we can see that the earnings have automatically been applied, all 5 of them, based on the template that we applied when we created them. And if we continue and go back to Employee, Deduction and Benefit Items, again for Bill Testman, we can see that he has RSP deduction and group insurance automatically assigned. As you can see, employee templates are a good way to get many default settings applied to each new employee based on their employee type. And in many cases, there are other detailed settings that need to be applied manually, settings that wouldn't be set up through an employee template. For example, if we go back to the employee menu, and now we'll choose employee address, we can see that we still have to fill out the information for Bill Testman explicitly. Similarly, if we go back to employee and choose status parameters, there's still a couple of status settings that needs to be assigned to Bill, such as his start date. Let's choose March 1st, and we'll make it 2010. And if we scroll over, we can see the last rehire date termination doesn't apply here, but his position will. Continuing on through the employee menu, we come to pay parameters. Again, the template has applied a number of settings for Bill automatically. However, if we plan to pay him via EFT, we do have to set his primary bank account. In this case, we would set it to yes for enable, give it a name as well as the actual data. Continuing on, we go back to employee and choose the next item, which is tax parameters. Many settings have been applied automatically for Bill, including his federal claim amount and the provincial TD1 amount. Now that we've been through the first 5 options under the employee menu, it's time to make a distinction about these 5, starting from setup employee down through tax parameters. Though each of these 5 menu options will show a different screen with distinctly different information, they actually share from the same pool of 60+ data points that we can assign to each employee. To demonstrate this, let's open up the Setup Employee screen. As you can see, there are 9 or 10 columns starting from surname all the way through to template. These are considered the default options when you're starting to set up an employee, and then later on you get into their address, status in the payroll, pay parameters, and tax parameters, and so on. However, these particular options can actually be modified right on the screen, and we can add to the columns if we like. Let's click on the Customize View button in the button bar, and this opens the Customize View window. The right side of the window corresponds to the visible columns that we see on the current screen. For example, surname and given name through language and template, shown here. And the left side of the window shows the available column section. These are a listing of the available options that we can add to the visible side, either one at a time by clicking them, or multiples by control click. And to move these options over, we simply click on the arrow to the right, or if we want to move the entire column of options, we can click on the arrow with a line. For our demo, let's move the email column over. So let's click on email, choose the arrow, and email appears at the bottom. Now take note, if you see language and template that corresponds to what we can see now on the screen, email will now appear when I click the Save button. This is now considered a custom view, and when we click the Save button in the window earlier, the Change View button now shows View 1. And we can see the other original view called Default, which is the same view you see now, minus the email. To summarize what we've just shown you about the first 5 options under the Employee menu, let's show you a graphic that we've created. The top section shows the 63 available items that we have currently in the program, and these 5 options here shows the breakdown. Feel free to pause this demonstration for a moment if you want to review this screen, or you can take a screen capture and print it out if you like. The information is also shown in the online help. The tax parameters screen contains the most options, and if we minimize and go back to the tax parameters screen, we can see how it corresponds. Now let's move on to employee bank accounts. As mentioned earlier, if we want to pay Bill via EFT, he does have to have a bank set up. We could have done it on the previous screen, but we can also do it explicitly on the bank account screen shown here. To do so, we simply expand this row to look at the other options, primary, secondary, and other. And in this case, we'll just use one bank. So we can double click on the row for editing, and under enable we would choose yes, name the bank, and then for our demo purposes, a mock number. Clicking the Save button adds the bank account for Bill. Continuing on through the employee menu, we already looked at earning items and deduction and benefits earlier. Accumulators have also been set up via the template. As you can see for Bill, he has one called Vacation Pay. And that's all the information we have to add for a new employee, because if you go back to the employee menu, the final options won't be applicable. He won't have any year-to-date earnings, deductions and benefits, or accumulators because he hasn't been calculated in a payroll yet, and we won't be importing any more employees at this time. And to complete this new employee demo, we'll show you how to do it manually really quickly. Essentially, you just go back to Employee, choose Setup Employee, and instead of selecting a template, you can just click the New button. And just like before, you get a new row where you can start entering the data. But in this case, there will be no template applied with no previous settings, as you can see. That concludes the demo on how to add a new employee to eNETEmployer Payroll. Hope you enjoyed. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel for more how-to videos.